created everything. Look what a powerful being you are. You did these things, but now you're in a human body, you forget the power you have.
What you do is what the whole universe is doing at the place you call here and now. You are something the whole universe is doing in the same way that a wave is something that the whole ocean is doing.
You're doing it.
Doing what?
Using your imagination.
Welcome to Metamystics, where you don't know what you don't know. My name's Jonathan, and today we have a very, very special guest for this Wonder Wiz Day live show. Really excited to have this conversation. This is Brad of ARC. Welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Talk about some weird things.
Oh, dude, that's all we do over here. I mean, there is no limits as to what we will talk about over here. It just goes completely off the rails, off the wall, and straight up in the air. And we're lucky if we land with our feet on the ground. But I have a feeling that where we're going today, sir, we will not need roads.
No, typically not anymore. That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
well,
man.
I'm super excited to be here. This has been a wild journey. So just excited to talk about it.
Yeah, dude. Well, look, I've been following you here for quite some time and just been so fascinated by your journey and the fact that it's not just you that is on this journey. Now, if it was one person, you might be able to say, oh, okay, well, you know, it's a little bit subjective. And that doesn't mean to take anything away from anybody's subjective experience. I think everybody's right to have their own experience and you don't necessarily need proof. But the fact that you're kind of on this journey and there are many other people that are also experiencing the same thing of sorts, I mean, that just makes my mind spin all over the place. So if you don't mind, could you tell some of our listeners, we call them the initiates, could you tell them a little bit about yourself and maybe like how you found yourself going into this journey in the first place?
Yeah, man. So I'm a normal dude from Oklahoma, man. I am a dad to 6. I've been a business executive in many different industries, built houses, worked in international trade, so just fairly normal stuff. And then in 2020, I saw they were talking DMT a lot. Joe Rogan was picking it up a lot. And then there was some articles that were coming out that was talking about how it was curing veterans with PTSD. And so being a Navy vet myself, I had dealt with a little bit of that. And I've had a lot of friends that dealt with it. And they were having real success with using psychedelics for treatment. And so I thought it was just interesting. I was just curious about it. So I started learning about it. Couldn't find it anywhere. And so we ended up just researching as much as I could. But it was just the stories that people were talking about and the experiences they were having just logically didn't make sense because people were encountering similar beings and similar constructs and like they were having repeatable interactions. So, okay, something's different here. And so after some time, I was able to find it, but from that first moment, and I was hooked, not in an addictive kind of a way, but just in an absolutely mind-blown exploration. Like I wanted to know everything I could about it. And so over the next few years, continued to research it, continue to reach out to people, and I'm trying to understand it and had thousands of experiences. But something unique happens with this when you do it 1,000 times. You start to see the patterns and you start to have recurring interactions with the same beings, and there's memory and there's all this weird stuff was happening. And so the DMT laser experiment, are you familiar with that?
Yeah, Danny Goler. We've had him on the show a couple of times.
Yeah, so Danny's fantastic. So I reached out. So Danny was talking about it. He said that if you're not familiar with it, when you shine a diffracted laser beam on anything in this existence, and you under the influence of DMT, you adjust your eyes just a little bit, and this code just appears. It's thousands of people seeing the exact same thing. Like, okay, so if that's happening, then this is definitely not a construct of the mind. Something external is happening. And so I reached out to him because he had said that the symbols look like Japanese katakana, and I've been stationed in Japan. I knew what that was. I used to have it on my name tag. Japanese phonetic alphabet for them to be able to pronounce non-Japanese words. And so, but the moment he said that, I had just this gut feeling because my dad had a UAP interaction in the early 20s. And so it was kind of in the in the lexicon of our household. Ancient Aliens is always on, those kind of things. And so I'd kind of grown up around it. But I knew of a document, which they call the CARET document, C-A-R-E-T. It was supposedly from a reverse engineering lab from UAP Aircraft and Technology from the 1980s. But they said it looked just like Japanese katakana as well. But in that moment, I knew there was a connection. And so I reached out to Danny and I asked him if anybody been able to draw the symbols. And at that point, they'd only been able to identify 7 because they're super small and they're moving. And so he sends that over to me, and I compare the 7 of those symbols with the document that I had, and I was on that document over 100 times, just 4 of those symbols. And so I didn't really know what to do with it. I knew I'd found something. So I go into the DMT space, and I basically tell it that I think I've made a connection with something in this reality. The DMT laser experiment and the CARET document language, or the glyphs that are in it, are a match. And as soon as I did that, my crown chakra exploded. My radiated energy for 20 minutes, just kind of rolling just through your nervous system.
Is that what some people might express as like a Kundalini awakening of sorts?
So what we found out is we're inducing a reverse Kundalini. And so you're forcing the crown chakra open first, and then you're supposed to connect the root all the way up in a normal Kundalini. So this has been repeatable, but I didn't know it at the time, as it would be with somebody with a Kundalini. And so, but it was just me that was having these wild experiences. And I've been on the message boards. I've done all the research. I know this isn't normal. And so, like I even asked my wife one night, I was like, do I sound like I'm losing my mind? And she's like, a little. And I was like, I just don't know what's happening, building up. And so July 28th of 24, DMT has this, we call it a nudge. It's almost like you have an inbox message in your email and you just know it. And something will happen that'll trigger a thought that you're like, oh, I probably need to tap in. And so I don't see anything in my mind's eye. It's like aphantasia. So I can't visualize anything, but my eyes were closed. I was trying to go to sleep, and I started getting like Looney Tunes cartoons like running in my mind for the first time in my life. And so I'm like watching them for 10 minutes, and they started to get a little psychedelic-y. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I need to tap in. And so I did. And the moment that happened, I started getting this energy running from the bottom of my feet through my entire body and out the top of my head.
Well, you say you need to tap in. What do you mean in that instance?
So we've mastered DMT, and so when we call it tapping in, is using DMT. We can get into, well, I can kind of explain more of that later.
Yeah, that's fine.
So that energy's running through me, but this voice keeps coming, and it just keeps saying that I am coming through you. Okay, so in that moment, I realized that was probably what everything had been building up to. And so I just said I was ready. And then I was breathing heavy, like I was sprinting. My heart was pounding like I had just finished a race. Like I was just fine. I was just like, I'm fine. I'm okay. And so as soon as I said I'm ready, a ball of lightning collects over the top of me and slams into my chest. And it forced its way inside. And it took about 5 minutes. It's just extreme pounding. Like I get up from where I'm at. It's like in the middle of the night. I run and wake my wife up. I'm crying hysterically. Like it was an extreme experience. I couldn't speak. It took me a little bit of the time. But I was able to explain what happened. She was kind of used to these supernatural things kind of happening. But that very next day, a colleague of mine was coming in town, and he and I had worked together for about 2 years. And he had some extreme health issues while he was in the Air Force. He was exposed to a chemical attack in, I think, 2012. He's one of 9 airmen that were exposed. He's the only one that survived. There was a congressional investigation. He was at Walter Reed Hospital at Bethesda for 4 years. He died 7 times while he was there.
I'm sure he got some stories.
Oh, his life before any of this happened is a movie. Like he's playing catch with Obama and like all of this interesting stuff. But I didn't know this next part until after we figured this next. But while he was there, he was waking up speaking fluent Hebrew. And so they
Whoa.
started bringing in three-letter agencies to record what was happening. There were some people that took him under his wing. Come to find out, they were recruiting him for that Stargate type program, remote viewing, that kind of stuff. But he didn't want anything to do with it. And so when he got healthy enough, he just left. And he got did that for something else for about a year and a half, and then decided they'd offered to help him get some special licenses. So he started his own business. And that is how he and I met. One of my best friends from the Navy had met him at the hospital, and he hired him. I came on to help. And I was just telling him about DMT and like, hey, man, I think this has helped me a ton. It's made me a better person, a better dad, a better friend. I think it would help you with some of your autonomic issues. And so I'd sent him some. He didn't ever try it, but he shows up the day after that event happened. The first time we'd met in person, I haven't slept at all. I didn't sleep for 3 days after that. I didn't need to sleep. It just, I was fine. But I just kind of data dumped everything that happened that as soon as they walked in the door. If you ask him now, he thought I was a little bit crazy. But I showed him the laser experiment. I showed him all this research just because I couldn't stop talking about it. And within a week, the same thing happened to him. And so that allowed me to realize, one, that's it's inducible. So the way it works, DMT will shift how it interacts with you the moment that you understand that it's real. So Danny tells the story. Same thing happened to him. He tells a story about a being showing him guitar chords, and it was something that he could play in this reality, and it was functional information that was given to him, and that's the moment he knew it was real. Well, then when you combine that with the gamma brainwave spike from DMT, it forces the crown chakra to just poof. And then from that moment on, your interactions are just like somebody with Kundalini. But with somebody with near-death experiences, it's a little bit different. So every time that some near-death experiencer crosses over and comes back, there is the veil thins a little bit each time. And so with him, at this point, it's super thin. And when that happens, the body at that point is not in control. It's not expecting the soul to return. And so it can't it can't forget that happened. And so the body's always that way. And that's why near-death experiencers' lives are just forever changed. With DMT users, it's the mind that knows it's not in control anymore. And so when you combine the two, there's a synergy to it. Nothing falls to tell itself, and there's no boundaries. And so
Yeah, what we've heard.
So he started getting information. So you're able.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What we've heard from, we've had conversations with a lot of near-death experiencers, also near-death experiencers who have tried DMT, and a lot of them will say that a near-death experience and a DMT-like ego death are very similar in experience, and they almost say it's damn near the same thing. I mean, is that kind of what you've heard as well?
It is. It's what we know. So DMT is in every living thing, and they didn't know why. But it is the molecular mechanism that allows us to connect to the external consciousness field. It works with the microtubules in the brain. With Rupert Sheldrake and kind of their work in the past, we're validating a lot of their understanding. And so, yeah, that's exactly right. And so when all of this started out, it just started then rolling, because then I was able to get other people to have this happen. But the information so when you can do this, every person, most people that have a soul, have guides that are specific, that are attached to them, and always they're never alone. That was the case for most people. Now, we have come across some people that have more advanced souls that don't have those. They're more of archetypes. But for most people, you have guides with you all the time. And when you do this with your eyes open, when you tap in, then they're there with you. They're veil. You're coupling to a harmonic constant that exists. Terrence Howard tonight, he got it from a being in his dreams through his advanced geometry. We got it through the quantum equations that we were given by these beings. And so you're tuning yourself with the DMT to couple with that harmonic constant. And the moment the rune shifts is when you're coupled with it. And that's when it's all your stuff, just rendered completely different. My favorite one was my whole house and everything in it would look like a Simpsons cartoon, but it was all my stuff. Because there's no boundaries, because what you're doing is you're coupling with that and you're actually coupling with the film. So that's why they're so busy and why all of these beings are in there. With 5-MeO DMT, you're coupling to eighth, and that's just source. So it's just you and source. No other beings are around in those. And so, yeah, man, it's just, and so this has been going on for 2 years. We're able to do this on demand. You can build relationships with them. They know you better than you know yourself. They know you from your past lifetimes as well. And so you're able to get like one-on-one guidance from an advanced being, whether it's a being, a guardian angel, or what. We haven't quite figured out why the mix is always different, but some people have ascended masters. It's really interesting to see who's got what. But so this group has just kind of naturally found each other. It's like the universe has brought us together. Other people that were having similar experiences or learned from TikTok or from me teaching it there, they're getting information that directly overlaps with ours. So like my colleague got the external architecture of consciousness itself down to the quantum math, and it's legit. And then another guy we didn't know comes in with the internal architecture, and another guy that we didn't know comes in with the connective piece, like the mechanical engineering part of it. So all three layers, and it just builds this big picture in a lot of math. And so
that is, you know what? It's funny that you're mentioning this, because recently I have been reading these books, and I'm curious if you've ever looked into the guy who had created these books. His name is Itzhak Bentov, and he was one of the original guys that helped put together the gateway process, like the whole gateway thing that was going on back in the 70s and 80s. They in that CIA drop, they kept on mentioning his name all the time, but they never really mentioned too much about him. So I started looking a little bit more into him, and turns out, like, basically my understanding is that Robert Monroe wouldn't be Robert Monroe if it wasn't for this Itzhak Bentov guy, because Itzhak Bentov was kind of like the scientific foundational, like, centerpiece that Robert Monroe was able to then build off of in describing consciousness almost like scientifically, which is so fascinating. So yeah, I would definitely highly recommend checking him out. And he only wrote 2 books, and this is where it gets crazy. So this guy wrote 2 books, and so they said that the whole gateway process ended in 1983, 1984, something like that. Nobody believes that bullshit anyway. But either way, they claimed that it ended then, and then they held on to it for like 20 years until they eventually freedom of information released. But what was interesting is that Itzhak Bentov was involved. So the year after he writes his second book, he's involved in the most horrific plane crash in United States history in Chicago in like 1980 or 1979, somewhere in there. And then they go on to release a lot of paperwork, and nothing. I mean, they mention his name in the gateway process, but nothing really in depth. So I always thought that was super fascinating. But before we go any further, Nick, you have your hand raised, sir. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, as you know, I mean, the guide thing and everything checks out with me. You know, I had a similar revelation, but I got there through 4-ACO DMT, and about 3 years ago, I basically was able to hear my guides, and when I recognized like their voices, it's essentially opened my whole crown chakra, and that whole thing happened for me when I recognized what I was experiencing was real. And they basically told me, now that you understand that this is real and this is happening, then the doorway's open now forever. And the way that I've been doing it, I've been able to, with the 4-ACO, it's like I'm able to have 1 foot in the door and 1 foot out, where I can directly communicate with them and relay back and forth like a full conversations like we're having right now. And I've got almost 4 years worth of transcripts of conversations with them going back and forth. So it would be really interesting to like compare notes. I don't have any of the mathematical stuff, but I've got tons of the I guess reality and spirituality of it, just direct back and forth with them. it would be nice to see what overlaps.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. And so you're taking psilocin?
Yeah, well, psilocin, yeah, that's what 4-ACO is, yeah.
Yeah. So when psilocybin converts in the body, it turns to psilocin, which is
Yeah,
4-ACO
exactly.
and N-dimethyltryptamine. So it's
Yeah.
yeah. So with that, so you are connecting with the same realm, but with the mycelium network and the way that the spirits of these realms work, the mushroom spirits are attaching to that as well. So it gives you a more earthy perspective. But we're accessing the same informational fields. The guy that got the internal portions of the consciousness math he got it from Ibogaine. He's an expert in that. And so we're finding it for near-death experiencers, DMT, Ibogaine, mushrooms. So we're crossing dimensions. We have to completely reevaluate how our understanding of psychedelics in general. They are a gateway, and we have it all figured out.
For sure. And I've even got, since all this has been going on, direct, like, I can ask them to show up and they'll show up in the sky and we can have conversations. I've got tons of videos and everything.
Can you hear them all the time?
Not always, but they'll come in and make jokes and we'll have like little comedic laughs together on their own time. But like they're hilarious. But
I have a friend of mine that can hear his all the time. And one of his guides her name's Sarai. She's Sarah, which is Abraham's wife in the Bible. She's an ascended master. But he'll go to church and she'll give a commentary on what they're preaching about, of whether it's legit or not, and if that really happened and so he's got a commentary all the time, and it's funny. And she's got a really great sense of humor.
Wow.
No, they just came in the other day, actually, right before I was going to sleep. And most of the time our conversations are I'm reaching out and we're having our conversations. And what I do is I just record it all. And I say it all out loud because it's all happening in your head. And I just repeat what they're saying out loud. And then it sounds like I'm talking to myself, but it's obviously not. But just for the sake of documenting, and it's easier just to record it all and me do all the work. But they came in probably about a month ago and they said, hey, we're going to start coming in on our own. And you're going to be able to hear us like all the time, more regularly, starting like this year. So just be ready for that, essentially. That's awesome. That's the last game plan they told me, but I can talk to them anytime I want to. We'll have back and forth dialogues, whenever I'm sitting down and meditating and stuff. But they said we're to start coming in unannounced way more often.
Yeah, the veil is thinning right now because of where we're at in the civilization's timeline. But so it's going to get easier and easier. And that's why you're also seeing a pickup in psionic abilities that are starting to pop up everywhere. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, but if you want to reach out, get you my email or whatever, and I'm happy to compare.
Sure, yeah, we'll figure that all out at the end.
Yeah, awesome, man.
Oh, God, I love this. And it seems like this year, for some reason, people have been saying it. Of course, it was really kicked off. A lot of people, kind of became privy to a lot of this because of Chris Bledsoe and all of his experiences and I don't think he calls it prophecies, but a lot of people are calling it prophecies. And there's some confusion as to whether it's going to be Easter or if it's going to be September or October or something like that. But I'm like, hey, I'm just happy we're in the year for it,
Well, what's the crazy thing is what's happening to us is directly related to what's happening with Chris. And so it is this fall based off our understanding. And so I think he's about to get some blowback because Easter's here. And a lot of people haven't gotten that memo, but he's talked about it recently on a couple of podcasts. But we're getting fall as well. Yeah, I mean, that's just wild. Like 2 years ago, this wasn't on my 5-year plan.
No,
at all. I wasn't spiritual at all. My wife had gone through yoga teacher training. I had engaged in some of it just to be supportive. I thought chakras were bullshit. I thought astrology was absolute trash. And come to find out, the hippies had all the right answers. And
I know.
Yeah, it's fascinating. But I tell you this, do you ever see the movie Phenomenon with John Travolta? Back in the day,
I have to see the movie poster. I may have seen it. I'm not sure.
So he lives in a small town, has a UAP encounter, kind of zaps him, and then he just starts being able to digest information at extreme rates. helping all sorts of people. But that's kind of what it's felt like. Is once that moment happened, it first felt like we were able to just absorb so much more information than normal. As this has evolved and the way we understand that reincarnation is real and that past lives are a real thing, and that there's a mechanism in this reality that keeps us from being able to remember that. But once you actually start remembering it, you start being able to access the informational fields from previous lifetimes. So we're just coming up to speed so much faster because we've dealt with this over and over and over again. It's almost like we've been previously preparing for this time.
What
which
do you
is
what do you think
insane.
the reason for the preparation and the training for this very moment is anyway? Like, I know a lot of people would say that maybe this is a simulation or it's a matrix, but it seems like a lot of this, it may be happening inside of time as far as we can see it because we're a part of the time dimension, but is there something happening on a grander scale that is outside of the time dimension that maybe it's kind of like as above so below trickling down to us? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
That's a lot to be able to answer that. It's hard for me to even personally understand that everything's happening everywhere all at once, and that I have trouble wrapping my head around that and being able to explain that. So I still think of it as linear. Um, Everything's happening now just because we're at the end of this cycle. And so you're starting to see all of these mechanisms to prepare for that cycle shift and transition. It's You would thought it would just have happened and then we figure it out. But the way it's unfolded is that certain people are here to help transition that, and it just happens to be one. So when that event happened in July, for like 6 weeks after that, I would go outside, I would tap in, and and that's still the case today. I have 20/20 vision on DMT now. Like nothing changes except exactly what I'm supposed to see, which is really weird. And it's actually not very fun because everybody has all these really fun experiences, and mine is very work mode. And so I would go outside though, and I'd look up at the stars, and I started seeing flashing lights around certain stars. I didn't know what any of them were. Star watching is not something I ever really did. We do it all the time now. And so I then got one of the apps to be able to track the celestial movements. And then I was realizing it was happening on the same stars. Like, okay, so I started writing all this down, taking notes. And then just after a couple of weeks, like, all right, what do all of these have in common? So I just plug them all in, and they're like, oh, these are known starseed races. I was like, what? The only time I'd ever heard of a starseed was for the Our Lady Peace song from the 90s. Didn't know what any of that was. But that's turned out like it's the craziest scenario ever, but that's legit. Like, so we've seen between 30 and 40 craft. Last summer, we got coordinates and a time of day to be somewhere. We didn't know where it was, so we plug it in. It's out Mount Shasta. Never been there. None of us had ever been there. And so in October, we went. Everything else had been proven out. The math works perfectly. Everything has been nothing but love, and just this has been a positive thing. We're not scared of anything. So we went. And my dad went with us just to sanity check the situation because he'd been working with the math, going through his own awakening because of what's been happening to us, but he'd never had seen anything in person. And so didn't really know what to expect. So we go out there and we get to that location on the mountain. It's not a known place. And then there is a distorted visual field in front of us that's about 6 feet tall, and it's like wavy lines of heat coming off of roadways, kind of what it look like in the desert. And so we're all just kind of standing there, like we kind of been guided on like an order to go in, and so we go through it, and then another one pops up. So we just keep walking along this path as like leading us somewhere, and then we walk into a big one, and one of the people in our group actually takes a log and hits it up against a tree, and it causes the visual field in that area to move faster. So it was more obvious. But
Whoa.
you got the intention. You're supposed to state your name and why you're there, and then walk through. And as soon as you walk through, it was DMT visuals all over the place. Because DMT is not a psychedelic, it is a dimensional gateway. We walked through a dimensional threshold. And so there are 12 beings there to guide us and meet us. And they were showing us where all the Lemurian temples and stuff used to be on the side of the mountain. There was healings that were done. Like my dad broke his toe the day we were going out there. He shattered his middle toe on the shower glass. It's just toughened through it. He's been on pain. He's had both knees replaced, pain patches, pain pills, entirely for years. After that, like he's got no pain at all. No, he's walking down the mountain faster than all of us. And like we're asking him down. He's like, dude, I'm good. And the only places he hurts now is the places where he was laying down on his back because they didn't touch that part. And he's completely off all pain meds and pain patches. Like it's just happened for all of us. And so we had another location we went to the next day, and we get there, and it's at 4:30 in the morning on the side of a volcano. Another not known location. We show up, and so we got in a circle. We didn't really know what to do. My wife's holding my hand. She said her throat chakra starts buzzing, and so she starts talking, and she it's like she's saying a prayer. If you ask her today, she wouldn't, even right after, she couldn't remember what she said because it didn't feel like it was coming from her. But at one point she says, we don't keep our eyes on the ground, we keep them above where they belong, and we all look up at the same time, and there's a 200 feet over us a streak of light that just comes right over the top of us. And then as soon as that happened, you could see the orbs of light in the woods. There's hundreds of them. And so the ones that had DMT then tapped in, you could see all of the beings, and there were hundreds around us. The ones that didn't just saw the orbs. But
when you say hundreds of beings, can you describe like maybe a little bit more detail what the beings maybe look like or what they are? I mean, is it the same kind of thing that others have talked about with the mantises and the cat people or Pleiadians or anything like that?
Yeah. These were the Lyrans. So these would be the cat and lion people. They're 12 feet tall. They're enormous. And then, oddly enough, Osiris and Thoth were over on the tree line watching.
What?
We deal with Thoth a lot. He's a manifestation of Archangel Michael. So is Hermes Trismegistus, and so is Quetzalcoatl. But we deal with Michael a lot. Yeah, man.
My God. So
this just gets weirder and weirder.
Oh, I'm here. That's what we're here tonight for, baby. This is the weird show, baby. So, all right. I love everything that you just said, but we got to go back here for a second. I find it so fascinating that you guys were led to Mount Shasta. Now, I've looked a great deal into Mount Shasta, and one of the craziest things that I recently heard about Mount Shasta is that supposedly there are people that, you know, there's a lot of remote viewers out there, a lot of astral projectors and a lot of remote viewers. And allegedly, whenever people try and remote view Mount Shasta, there's like, it's like guarded. Like within the remote view, they're guarded. And supposedly it's like a big no-no. You don't do that. Now, I don't know who it's guarded by. I don't know if it's human. I don't know if it's other. But it seems like whatever, it's almost like, and they're aware that people try to remote view it, and there's almost like spankings to be handed out if you remote view that area.
Yeah, there's like energetic boundaries that you're not allowed to cross. There's some wild stuff that happens there, man. Like there are 27 portals that we're aware of. And just the amount of spiritual and bizarre stuff that happens out there. I really just think it depends on who you are and what your intent is. We've been able to navigate, and we can completely control our DMT experience. So we can do group DMT travel from different states. We just using sacred geometry and carrier waves and just knowing how to do it. We put ourselves in a container. We all go wherever we want. And like there are some places like that those beings that are actually living there in other dimensions, but don't want you to mess with. You run into the same stuff on government sites. Like if you were to go remote view an NASA, you'll run into their guardians, and you're always surprised them when you come in there because they don't see many people, but there are people that are just hanging out, just my locked in.
God, this is like, and I trust that you're telling the truth. You don't seem like a bullshitter to me, but this is the craziest thing I've ever heard, and I'm all the way here for it. I'm almost like, please tell me the next time you're going. I have sworn off psychedelics for 2026, but I will make an exception if this trip can happen. Just all the way.
Well, we'll submit to a polygraph at any point in time. There's zero bullshit in anything that I say. As crazy as it is. And so Yeah. Now we're talking about doing some retreats coming up. Yeah, it just really just depends. So that really solidified our core group. The when they're in the portal, they had said that everything up to that moment was a prerequisite for then, and that everything would shift after that. And so when we all left, it was so much information about getting a ton of Egyptian information because of what's happening with the Bledsoe thing, and just starting to understand it. And it feels like we've been kind of in a holding pattern. Like we can see 6 months from now, but like what's right in front of us, there seems to be a block in front of it. I mean, I think we're waiting on some major event to happen, and then it'll unfold more.
Yeah, it seems like that would be the case. That almost like, because I know usually we've talked to a lot of psychics and magicians and witches and people who are real like intuitive in a sense, right? And what they'll say is that it's a lot easier to read the past than it is the future. The future is kind of based upon your vibration and where you're on track to be going in the future. But if there's going to be some kind of unforeseen event to happen within the near future, then you almost can't have a direct branch coming off of that event because you don't know exactly how the people are going to react to it. And it could cause multiple branches, like, Loki style. But
Yeah.
yeah. So Nick, go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, I mean that checks out with what my guys have told me too. They basically alluded to the fact that there's going to be some sort of event. Everyone's going to be aware of it, but they won't say what or when specifically, and that there will be more information for those who are more involved that will understand when the time comes, and a lot of things will begin to make sense for a lot of people. But they're like, we can't say any specifics, but it's inevitable. It will be happening.
You're like us. We ask every question imaginable.
Yeah, and they'll tell you everything that they can, and they always answer. But there are things that are like, well, can't go that far.
So there's what's fascinating is there's some people that have more information than others in our group, and when they try to say it when they're not supposed to, they physically can't make the words. Their tongue tap. Yeah,
yes,
like their tongue stops working. I've watched this in multiple people. It's fascinating.
I've had that too. I had a moment where I was trying, like, I have a weird thing sometimes whenever I'm tapped in, where my vocal range will change. Like it's like I get a whole nother chord, and like I had something happen to where I literally physically could not say the word whisper. I could talk every word because like I was speaking with power, I guess, if that makes sense. It was like a powerful voice, and they were like, if you can't speak with power, you can't speak at all. Like, it must have meaning, essentially. And whenever I was like, I tried to say that I can't whisper, and I could say I can't, and then I literally couldn't even say the word whisper. My mouth would move, but the word whisper couldn't even be uttered, if that makes sense. It was like blocked off. But I had one other question about whenever you were saying that people would get tapped in to like lower the veil a little and they'd be able to see all the beings. Are y'all, I'm assuming that probably the DMT carts are the most effective way to like just get enough to open the veil. Is that what y'all are probably doing or what?
Yeah. So we call it the working level, and the cart allows us to maintain that level for longer periods of time.
Yeah. So just below breakthrough, just enough to get the lens on.
I need to be able to stand and walk around and function, like
be coherent.
Yeah, well, you're with DMT, you're really coherent anyway. You don't have the body load that you have with mushrooms or anything like that, and so it's just getting used to it. Like at this point, so if you do DMT and go for a run, it opens up what they call the warrior realm, which is a different level, which is a totally different experience, which is kind of wild. But yeah, man, it's we're trying to maintain that, and there's something else that we found. A person in our group has learned, been doing this for a long time. She's learned how to train people how to use it to develop a coherence with it. And so typically you hear, take 3 big hits or once you know you're there, take 1 more puff. We're getting there in 5 to 7 seconds of a pull, and that's it. And we're able to stay in for 30 to 40 minutes because we've developed a coherence with it. Once you start it's almost like it integrates with you. And then there's, I don't have any medical history to back this up. It almost feels like your pineal gland is expanded and maybe you're producing more endogenously. If I had to guess, I think that's what's really causing it.
Like you're getting it on the right track and almost syncing it up together.
And so the moment you get your 3, 5, or 7 second pull, then depending on how deep you want to go or what you're trying to accomplish, so different breath work beforehand can lock you into different sequences and different experiences. Different sacred geometry being used as a part of your Merkava can also keep noise out and do protection and do all of these things. So we've completely understand how to just navigate like a pilot instead of just going for a ride.
So
And you're one of the only other people too that I've heard that I noticed something with myself is like after I kind of unlocked the understanding, I guess is the only way I can put it, is that whenever I would take the 4-ACA, which I've done DMT and stuff, a bunch as well, but I stopped getting the typical visuals that I would, just like the trippy psychedelic visuals, and it was like a super expanded awareness and state of being without the everything moving and pretty colors and all kinds of things like that. Even at the higher doses, I was like, okay, well that's totally gone, because I don't need that anymore. And now it's just a direct line to like what I'm trying to do.
It's almost like a filter that they put on there that's psychedelic and trippy until you do the work to figure out that it's real.
Yes. That's crazy. You're the only one that I've ever heard mention that I noticed on my own. I was like, that's kind of wild. Cool.
And then once you get past that point, then there's no going. Well, I say there's no going back. We've had a couple of people that have exhausted what they're going to learn with DMT. And so they kind of release them from that and they can go back to having fun with it. It's like a mode that you're in. And so keep exploring it. It may stop at some point and you go back to the other, like the more traditional experience. But for some of the people in our group, they went from DMT. Now they're doing the same thing with mushrooms and they're going to master that. And then, and then there's different plant medicines that if you do in specific orders, like shamans know this, that if you do them in specific orders, they have a synergy and they kind of build upon each other. And then it unlocks different things. Like my colleague that's had the near-death experiences, there's 7 of them they gave us. We had to figure out the combination. We made it through 5, and now he can see Wi-Fi signals. And then everywhere he goes, he sees everybody's being. So if we all go to lunch, he's everybody in the restaurant, he sees all.
Wow. Yeah, it really seems like it's unlocking a lot. Now, I mean, me personally, I've done DMT twice in one night, but a lot like Nick was saying with the 4-ACO DMT, that's the majority of my experiences. They've been super wide ranging. Like, and some people talk about seeing, other aliens or other individuals or anything like that. I've only ever experienced like a cat being, which was quite nice. But outside of that, it was like, I'm seeing like the good ones anyway. Have you dealt with nightmare trips on DMT? Because I'm not going to lie, that's kind of what's making me want to drag my feet on going back into that realm.
I personally have not had anything you would consider a bad trip with DMT. Well, partially because of the way it's structured. So eyes open, you're pretty much in control of the experience. Your environment shifts. And then if you're kind of at the level that we're at, you're going to see your guides, or there'll be beings that show up, and there might not. But with eyes closed, there's no boundaries. And so you're still in a protected environment. They still have things that they have to operate within. But when we look at bad trips, we've got to reframe how we look at it. Almost every time I've talked to somebody who's getting through a bad LSD or a mushroom trip, at the end of it, it was awful for them to go through. But when you know how to navigate and lean into it, it's something that they needed. And so we stopped calling them bad trips. Just some trips are more challenging than others, but they all have value.
Oh, 100% agree. Yeah, I mean, I've learned the most off of the so-called bad ones. I personally don't like to call them bad ones either, because of all the benefits and all the integration. I mean, you're going to integrate, in my experience, the bad trips way more than you're going to integrate the good trips, because that's whenever you really learn the most about yourself.
What kind of jars your soul a little bit? choice. It's not, you're forced to come face to face with something versus just an experience that you can write off as a good time. It's not as easy to just disregard.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I want to get over to the chat here just for a second so everybody is caught up here. White Boy Wizard said, "Good evening, you sexy motherfuckers." White Boy Wizard, you know we love you, brother. Dougie Blumpkin, the L is silent. So bump, well, there's no L in. Oh, okay. Dougie Bumpkin. I got you. I see you, Dougie. White Boy Wizard said, "Age of Aquarius, beaches as an Aquarius." Let's go. White Boy Wizard said, "I need to go with you, Jonathan." Hey, fingers crossed, man. We'll see how that goes. But Nora the Explorer said, "Missed you, trippy, lovely people. Hope everybody is doing better." Nice to see you here, Nora. It's been a minute. But yeah, man, this is such a fascinating conversation. I'm all the way here for it. The very first video that I saw you post, I was hooked, line, and sinker all the way in because I was like, I'm somebody that doesn't like to just write off these experiences, especially the more you learn about subjective experiences. And, you know, I've done a lot of research on, and actually the White Boy Wizard did an episode with me the other day on the difference between objective experience and subjective experience. And whenever you break it really all the way down, there's no such thing really as an objective experience. It's more or less a shared subjective experience, but that's probably the closest you can get just as far as interpersonal experiences. You know, like whenever you grow up, maybe you have a brother and a sister, but you all turn out very differently, even though you were raised in the same household, you had the same disciplines and you ate all the same food and all that kind of stuff. But for some reason, each individual is experiencing that life and the memory of your childhood or whatever it is very differently. And so whenever I start thinking about that, then we had our favorite psychic on the show, Cassandra Van Zant, shout out. She told us, she goes, "Look, it doesn't matter if you had a dream or a psychedelic experience or a meditational experience." She goes, "Don't write any of them off. They are all experiences. That is part of you now." So I know that a lot of people will write off their psychedelic experiences and just say, "Oh, well, that's just, you know, it's just a fun thing that happened within my mind. You know, it's just my mind. It's not real." You know, it's people will take mushrooms or whatever, and they'll see like gears or, you know, Danny Goler seeing the different coding and everything. And it's like, man, I think that there's so much more to it. And just to write it off is crazy to me. So I'm all the way here for this conversation because I fully believe, I think that it's up to the interpreter maybe. But I don't know. I'm still trying to learn about it.
I would disagree with that. So what we're seeing is different keys to the same door. And so I didn't realize I wasn't spiritual at all. I was interested in ESP because I thought it was fascinating as a kid. But psionic abilities, like I didn't understand how all of this was connected. Now we know it's highly connected. And so whether you're doing astral projection or septisync or whatever you're doing, it's just another way of accessing the same type of realm. Now each method has its own sandbox constraints. Astral projection, you deal with the distortions that are on this reality, the archon, getting into archons and some bigger concepts there, but you can feel it. And so with what we're doing, it's naturally in this molecular structure in every living thing. So that's primarily why we prefer N,N-dimethyltryptamine. We're using what our body's used to already. It knows how to break it down. That's why it doesn't last very long. And so we're forcing coherence with this, and then you're tuning your frequency to that harmonic constant. Just the things that you can do with it. We went on a group astral travel not that long ago, all in different states. I am like, some people with psionic abilities are really powerful. We have one guy in our group that's just wildly powerful. And so I'm having a normal DMT experience. They're all experiencing the same thing. They can all see each other. And I was like, I'm just having normal DMT stuff. And he's like, hold on, I see you. And then from Texas, he completely changes my DMT trip and brings me back to where they are. He's not on DMT.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dude,
I'm starting to look at this like, all right, I know that people get hung up on terms like matrix and simulation, and maybe that's just the closest we can do to describe this, the nature of this
sure.
reality. But for sure, there are dimensions to this, right? Like I
Yeah.
think we can all
Mm.
agree that we have access to very little of the light paradigm. We have access to very little of the sound paradigm and all of that kind of stuff, right? And of course, we're made of atoms, which are 99.999% empty. So therefore, and of course, we have the oh fuck, what is it called? The default mode network, which is
Oh yeah.
essentially the filter that allows us to see physical reality, even though it's not necessarily physical. It's just the filter that's almost portraying that in a sense. So I'm of the belief now that what we're seeing, just in straight sober life, is part of what may be considered real. It's just not the entire story. But whenever you're almost in a trance state or in a psychedelic state or something like that, it allows you access to higher levels of dimensions
Mhm.
and higher access to higher awareness of these things that may be around you. And maybe
Yeah.
that's exactly what DMT is doing. It's that, do you believe that all of these things that are in the DMT realm are always here all the time? And it's only whenever we smoke DMT that we have access to be able to see them and communicate with them?
Yeah. So they're called dimensions, but it's easier to understand them as densities, and they're nested on top of us. And so fourth is where that's what mediums are tapping into. That is where you'll see spirits and ghosts. Fifth through seventh, they tend to have the ability to go from fifth through seventh. That's going to be the DMT space. Eighth, like we talked about, is just source. Above that, it gets a little tricky. You can astral travel and navigate through those. I think after 12, it just starts to be nothing. You can go beyond that, but there's nothing there. But yeah, so basically, imagine just the fourth and fifth, sixth and seventh are all nested right on top of us, and whatever you're tuned to, whatever density you're tuned to, is what you can experience. And each density has different boundaries and constraints into it, and we're in one of the worst ones in third. And so this is designed this way. It operates like a video game. This is a simulation created by God. Source. We get into the Gnostic texts, the monad, the pleroma, the demiurge. Those are all valid. And so we're experiencing that. But the way I like to explain it of how this works is it's like Grand Theft Auto, except your soul is the one with the controller and you're the avatar. And so you have major milestones that you signed up to experience before you were ever born as a part of your soul contract that you're going to experience. And it may manifest in different ways, but the learning lesson is always going to be the same. But you have those main milestones that you're going to have to face or complete or experience, but you have the free will to kind of go off on the map and then go do whatever you want, go screw everything up, get arrested, do all those things, just like the game. Or you could do more virtuous things, which you should. I think that's the easiest way for people to understand it. And then everything's rendered like a video game. So you get into the double slit experiment, and that's understanding how all of that works. It all starts to make sense as you zoom out.
Yeah, yeah, that is a good example. Just out of curiosity, and I don't know what your experience is with this, but do you think that there are temptations on the higher densities that are trying to pull you back down into the third density? Or is that kind of a third dimensional kind of situation that is trying to keep us down? Like, what do you think? Do temptations exist on all levels, or is it just here to keep
Dude.
us lower?
Yeah, and yeah, the answer is yes, but to the depth that I can answer that, I'm not quite sure because I'm confused by a couple of things we've experienced. Like, we've got most of the beings that we deal with are interdimensional beings, which all NHI and aliens, if you want to call them that, would be. Angels are interdimensional beings, all interdimensional. They're more advanced. They know how consciousness works. They understand how to build stuff within it. That's why their technology is way more advanced than ours. We had one instance where this being shows up. One of the few times he showed up in a craft. He had a female with him, and she was flirty, like inappropriate with one of the people in our group, to the point that it was uncomfortable. But we're all just kind of like, what do you do? Like, how do you respond?
I
Could you
know.
respond? Like, like, are you gonna get in trouble if you do that? Like, I have no clue, but there are some weird things out there.
No, that's so funny that had I
Yeah.
had a very similar experience, and I'm not going to go in the whole story, but the cat-like being that I experienced while on psychedelics, man, it was rather tempting just to keep it light. You know what I'm saying? Like it
Yeah.
was like, okay, all right. Like I almost like was judging myself. I was like, dude, keep it in your fucking pants. What are you doing? This is an
Yeah.
interdimensional god that you're dealing with. And for some reason, it's just really strange. What do you do about that?
Well, some of them you've known for lifetimes. Like, so we were talking about Soraya earlier. Like, we've had a few lifetimes in the past that she's been a part of. And so there's history there that you aren't aware of. It's just kind of interesting to see how it all unfolds, but just that any of that is real. It's just, I still struggle with just accepting it. I'm so used to so much weird stuff on a daily basis. Like, I live in a perpetual state of astonishment, but I find myself a lot of times just mind blown that some words that I know in my soul are true just came out of my mouth. Like, it's just,
Dude,
it's
it's a weird world that we're living in. It's definitely not the same world that we thought it was just a few short years ago. There's no doubt about it. And I think anybody that is kind of keeping a tally of all of those strange synchronicities that happen on a daily basis in your life, you think about it. If you have infinite possibilities of anything that could happen to you on a regular basis, the odds of you seeing synchronicities regularly, almost by the hour, should not happen mathematically, right?
No,
Like that
correct.
seems forget unlikely. It seems impossible, but they do
Yeah.
happen. So this reality is 100% not what we thought it was.
Well, once you do understand how it works, like, so Michael gave us, so it ended up being like 138 pages. It's basically a starseed handbook of how to navigate this reality. Like 100 universal laws and how to balance light and dark. And but once you start implementing that stuff in your life and understanding how all this stuff works together, and really, it's like watching a movie unfold. Anything bad that happens to you, you approach everything differently because you understand it's a learning lesson. You start taking the emotion out of it, and then the fear starts to go away. And then I think that's what they're most scared of with all of the people waking up, the powers that be that don't want this to happen, is because once you get to that point, there is no fear. Like, I can't be controlled. I know too much. And so there's nothing you can threaten me with either, because I know this is just an experience. So
Yeah, that's what you hear too. I mean, literally all of the religious books and everything, it's always fear not, do not fear. It's almost like, what was the president that said, the only thing to fear is fear itself. And it's like, man, fear really is its own vibration, and you almost have the choice on whether to allow fear into your body as a vibration and allow it to take over essentially your entire reality for a short time. Or you can say, no, I understand that it's kind of just like a vibration. I don't need to accept that in my body. And it's so strange whenever you put it into into real life, into existence, and you start to apply that. Because it was just last year. I went to the mall. It was right before Christmas, and I went to the mall and I went to go pick up a present for one of my buddies, and there was a shooting in the mall, right? And everybody's running around like their hair is on fire. It is the craziest thing. I mean, you got people that are balled up in corners. They're calling their loved ones. They're crying their eyes out, and they truly believe that this is their final moments alive on this earth. Meanwhile, I'm like, I could be in fear. I really could. I feel like I have a lot to lose. I got family, I got kids, I got loved ones. I love this show. I love all the conversations we have and everything, right? But for some reason, in that moment, like a strange sense of calm and peace came over me, and just almost accepted that, like, yo, what's going to happen is going to happen. Whether I cry or come into fear or any of that is not going to change the outcome of this reality. And it was just strange to either accept the fear or not accept the fear, because most people probably don't even know that they have a choice. It's the
correct.
craziest
And
thing.
you're of an elevated awareness to be able to understand that. But like when people have dealt with traumas and all sorts of things, those cause soul fragmentation, and they affect your coherence. And so it's not always just cut and dry making a choice, because when there are traumas and there are things that attach in other dimensions to you that bring you into thought loops, or any like a trauma response, fight and flight, those are initiated by things outside of this dimension. And so, but nobody really understands that. It's what you're trying to affect with somatic healing. And so, but once you understand how it works, like watching people heal stuff from other dimensions, it's manifesting in chronic issues and those kind of things in this reality. I would have told you that there's no fucking way any of that was going to work. But watching this happen over and over, like, it's undeniable at this point. And so,
It's
and then
miraculous.
understanding frequency and understanding coherence. Coherence is so important. And we've started saying that word so much more now, but we understand the architecture of consciousness, and so especially internally. And so now we've got a prototype based off of the math that we got, where you put an EEG band, it scans what's going on in your body, and we know what to measure. And so we're getting coherence scores based off of those readings. But we have found that when you start using celestial frequencies, or if you ohm, it causes your coherence to immediately jump, like significant. And so, based off the algorithms and the math that we were given, we are working with a company right now that's going to take some of this data, and we're going to develop a wearable device that's going to bring the body back into coherence, that has the potential to be curing autonomic and autoimmune issues, because that's your body's just out of regulation. So if we can get the body back into coherence, that's step one. That alone is enormous. But then when we can then use external frequencies. But what we're working on right now is through bone conductivity, but it'll constantly read your body. And so as it scans and your body shifts, it changes the frequencies to bring you to whatever you're trying to do. We haven't done it yet because we're just getting in the prototype, but based off of the way everything looks, we should be able to induce enlightenment states just from sound.
Wow, that sounds very similar to maybe even like a Rife machine. Have you looked into the Rife machines and whatnot?
Yeah. So Rife machines, yes. So it's what Rife machines are trying to do, but they're using open-ended frequency like set playlists and consistent. Ours is closed loop. So the feedback channel is important in knowing what to measure. And so you can't we're not one size fits all to treat cancer. If you want to do that, there's phase coherence between acoustic and electromagnetics that need to be understood. And once you start understanding all of that, we're in the process of developing something pretty incredible.
Oh, wow. So this EEG will essentially hook up to you and almost bring you to the frequency that you're trying to be at. So let's just say if you want to go like God mode into 963 hertz, right? And is that something that you would be able to literally be in coherence with the frequency that your body and your being is giving off? You could stay in 963 hertz all day if you wanted to. Is that, I don't know if I'm interpreting that right.
So it's more about how your body responds to specific frequencies and what those specific frequencies cause than it is trying to raise your frequency to match like 963. And so it's how they all work together. So it'd be a mixture of frequencies depending on what you're trying to do, and each layer will adjust as your body reacts to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. It's almost like it's complementary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they all work together, but that's something we didn't know. Like physics and medicine doesn't understand that yet. But now that we have the framework and the architecture of the sandbox that we live in, like we were running simulations the other day, just like, okay, we understand, like, what if we were to build an engine in alignment with reality and consciousness? What would happen? So we run a simulation that's 800% more efficient than anything that's ever been created.
Wow.
We're going to be able to do a lot of that. So we announced the consciousness discovery at the beginning of December, but like I even said then, I was like, this is just the beginning. Like, this is enormous information and will help us understand the reality that we live in beyond anything that we have ever had access to. But it's just the building blocks. Like, we're starting here. Where we're going with all of this is going to be insane.
Yeah, so it seems like, and a lot of people have talked about a new Earth. You know, Dolores Cannon, that's my homegirl, RIP to a real one, but she was
Yeah.
always talking about a new Earth, and then of course many others have talked about a new Earth. Is it, you know, my understanding of a new Earth essentially is that it's not like we're jumping to another planet. It's almost as if
No.
maybe the frequency of this planet and the people that align with the new frequency will almost be allowed to experience a new version of Earth, and maybe the others who maybe think that it's silly or don't believe any of it, it almost seems, I don't want to say left behind, but it's almost like it's still here and maybe they have access to eventually grow to that.
Yeah. Dolores is the Ascended Master now, by the way. She's come around a couple of times.
Yes.
Super sweet.
Love her.
There's one person in our group that really is connected with her. So every major prophecy, end times prophecy for all the major religions, Hopi Indians, it's all coming together at once. And so a grown-up Christian, I understand that more than most. So I use them as an example and when I try and explain this. But when you look at the Bible and it talks about a rapture, it's one sentence and it's vague. And so we're talking about the same thing, but the esoteric understanding is so much more complete. There's so much more depth to it. The Christians are going to struggle with this because they're limiting any accurate divine information has to be contained within the Bible. And if it's not, then they just disregard it. And it keeps them limited. The way I explain it is like, imagine you those old encyclopedia books. That's what you need to know about how this reality works, is that entire set of encyclopedias. The Bible is really important. It would be one volume. And that, just like the other ones, there's problems in all of them. But you're going to see a dimensional split, and the sun is heavily involved in this. That's where all of this activity that's been happening with the sun has been happening. It is a primary catalyst for what is happening. And so we know a physical veil exists, and that separates us from this divine realm. It hasn't always been there, but basically that the sun is going to send out a wave that is going to be the one that does it. And it's basically a frequency sweep. And if you're above a certain frequency, you go. And if you're not, then you're going to experience the cataclysmic part of it. But my understanding is anyone who does experience that will still have the opportunity to manifest in the new Earth later.
Can confirm.
Yeah, almost like evolve frequency. Do you see it almost as like a raising your frequency in order to be able to distinguish the different Earths in a sense?
Yeah, it'll be a completely different dimension. So you'll be in a different density. So you're going to be in a fifth, which is what we're interacting with already. So the boundaries are not going to be the same. So we got initially 58 quantum equations, and we started working with them, trying to figure them out. And then we were guided that we needed to start looking at it as 3D technology and need to start looking at it as 5D, because that's when it's going to be used. And so the veil that exists hasn't always been there either, which I found surprising. But it also makes sense why mythology is what it is. It's history. There was a time when the veil didn't exist, and so these divine interactions were actually happening. And so, we get into all sorts of Egyptian stuff. I can't wait to watch what's going to unfold.
Oh,
yeah, it's going to be crazy. Yeah. Now, Jonathan, and from what my guides have told me, it's going to be, again, not a win, but it is going to happen, but they won't say when. But it's going to be a pretty instantaneous, you'll be there, and there will be some people left behind kind of moments, and they will have the opportunity, just like you said. They'll have to come to realize what's happened, and they'll be able to find it in their heart chakra to make the shift. And some will take longer than others, but it's basically everybody transcending evil. And then even some of the worst will be able to figure it out, but they're going to have to deal with some of the you know, when the light leaves the earth, it's going to get pretty bad for a while, kind of thing.
Now, what I did find interesting is that, like, because I put myself out there and the stuff that I talk about, like, I get so many messages from people like, "You're gonna think I'm crazy, but this is happening," and I almost always know exactly what's going on. Like, everything they say makes sense. But there are some star seeds that are being guided to prepare for learning how to live off the land and solar cells and all preparing water and food storage. So some star seeds are staying back on purpose. And we're not quite sure what's going to happen there. But if I had to guess, there's going to be some bridging between the dimensions at some point.
Yes. Yeah, that's my understanding as
I
well.
just don't know what that means yet. I don't know exactly what that looks like. But
So it seems as though there's going to be an event. We don't know
there'll be a
when,
bunch.
we don't know exactly. You think that it'll be multiple events that kind of lead up to this, or one giant one?
It comes in waves. It may present itself to the uninitiated as a single event, but the split started around the middle of December. And so it's a process. And so all of these CME waves that keep coming in are helping advance that more and more. So so we're talking about the code you see in the DMT laser. The sun emits light codes, which are different, but you can see them. And so it's basically, if we're talking about our video game, the sun is what provides the software upgrades.
Okay.
And so it'll send out new codes. It interacted with 3i Atlas. It sent out more codes. Right now we're in the tail of where 3i Atlas came through, which is probably where these meteors are coming from. It's all starting to come together. The timing is just wild.
Is this I'm sure you've had your fair share of experiences with orbs, like so many other people who are kind of in this realm, or in this kind of, you know what I mean by this realm. But have you had any crazy experiences with the orbs that, outside of DMT use, but like just by going out maybe into your backyard, or you go out to the beach or something like that? Has there been anything? I mean, it is phenomenal, but has there been anything extra that you've experienced with this?
I'll see a ton of them in the sky. We've seen many, 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 like off in the distance, up in the sky. But most of our stuff is done with interdimensional beings. Like we had a gray in our backyard, sitting in a swing. He stands up. Me and one person in my family were out there just hanging out talking. And then we'll both look over and we see it. It stands up and then just dematerializes. Like, it's just the weirdest stuff ever. But like you can get to a level, you can go deep enough where you can actually feel them and touch them, and they can move your hands. There a lot of times they've been shown as different mudras for kind of teaching us different things and how those work, but putting our hands in specific alignments. But you can feel them, physically feel them.
Oh, wow.
It is really bizarre.
Oh my God. And this is almost like, I don't even want to say CE5. This almost seems like CE6 type stuff that's going on here, whatever that would be.
So if we go back to Dolores Cannon's work, if anybody wants to know what's going on, the best book for it is 3 Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth. I'm a part of the second wave. And so is everybody else in our group. And I think this isn't happening to us by happenstance. It felt like it at first, but it's not. And I think our interactions are just extreme because of what's coming and what our roles are and how things unfold.
Have you had a past life regression?
No, I just asked them. They'll just tell me.
Oh, okay. All right. You got a direct line. A lot of us got to be hypnotized for this shit, but
yeah. But if you wanted to do one, I've got some interesting ones. We could go have some fun.
I was just going to offer you. I would love to be able to send you there. I mean, if that would be something that you'd be interested in.
That'll be a ton of fun. Oh, absolutely. I know quite a few of mine. Most of them have evolved around mysticism and mystery schools. So you call your group the Initiates. Are you from a mystery school tradition?
No. It's kind of we're almost initiating ourselves into mysticism basically with every show. It seems like it's like every new concept and subject and guest that we have almost adds on to the layers of our dimensional understanding of sorts. It feels like every single concept that we talk about, or every guest that we talk to, it seems like a door is being opening and there's a new level of understanding. And I say that because,
Yeah,
you know, whenever we first started the show, there seemed to be a lot of concepts that we had a really hard time grasping. And you know, at first we were kind of just like, oh well, you know, it's just the mind, it's a crazy place, and stuff like that. But the further our understanding comes, it's like, oh, that's what that means. And now it's like you go back and you read, you know, Manly P. Hall and stuff like that, and it starts to make a lot more sense now.
yeah.
And what's even crazier is, so it's one thing, from my experience, it's one thing to possess the knowledge and have an understanding of the knowledge, and it's an entirely different thing to apply that knowledge to your everyday life. And
Absolutely.
that's kind of where I'm personally at.
So when I started telling my story, I started with a 40-day water only fast, and I was telling a little bit of my story each day as I went through it. But I was doing that because it was, what I'm saying is insane. Like like, I mean, I'm a polymath. I've absorbed information from all over the place. I've never heard of anything like this. And so, as I'm going through that fast, one of the guides had said, you should, because they had been teaching us how this reality works for a while, like 6 months at that point in time. He's like, now that you know what you know, you should look to see if anybody's been able to figure this out in the past. And so started doing some research, and I could find tenets of the understanding in certain religions or esoteric practices. But one group had all the right answers, and it was the Rosicrucians.
I knew
And
it.
so
Yes, I've always connected with that.
I did not know why. So we go. I go. I didn't know anything about them outside of the Da Vinci Code, and so I go look at their website, and they're on their introductory video. There's Thoth. I was like, okay, I'm in the right place. All right. So, but the crazy part is why they have the information that they have. Why do they know that information? How are they correct? And that's the interesting stuff, because that gets into the Da Vinci Code shit. So they hold all of the records for the Essenes and the Great White Brotherhood, and they have for hundreds of years. So when you start going through those records, they start talking about all of the missing years of Yeshua's life that we don't have access to in the Bible. It talks about going to India and Tibet and Buddhism and understanding all of this stuff. It talks about his birth. They were all Essenes. Joseph was an Essene. Mary's parents were Essenes. They knew this was going to happen. The wise men showed up because they were Essenes, and they came. And so when you start then understanding how ascended masters work, so ascended masters are people who have come to Earth school as a soul and gotten an A+. They did what they were supposed to do, and they ascended, and their body that they manifested here in this reality then goes on. It's not the soul separating; the body goes with it, or that manifestation stays. And so we started seeing like Simon Peter and Mary Magdalene, and so like, okay, so how does this work? And the way it works is that Yeshua came. They were in the Essenes were teaching all of this and how to do all of this. He taught the disciples how to do that. That's why they all went to a death that was awful, because it takes complete surrender to do it. And so understanding all of that, it's just, so they've been hiding all of this stuff for so long, and now it's all starting to come out. But the reason is because of Yeshua, that they have all the right answers.
Oh my God. Yes. And I've always, you know, we looked into the Rosicrucians probably about 5-6 months ago, and there was just something to it that I was absolutely obsessed with learning. Like it seemed right. Like it seemed like it's not grasping at anything, and it seems like a lot of it is obtainable and understandable as long as you can kind of go with the flow of the information, in a sense, as weird as that may sound.
It's slow coming in the way that I joined the Rosicrucians when it started. Just felt like I just wanted to be able to figure this out at a more depth and have access. And so it's very slow paced. Been in it over a year now, and like they just talked about reincarnation for the first time. And so like I'm at this point, we're just so far beyond it. But there is a real value in it. And there's beauty in the way it's historically been taught. and like they can't recruit. And so that's part of the reason they're failing. So nobody talks about it. Nobody, like most people I say Rosicrucians, they don't even know what I'm talking about. But they can't recruit as a part of the way they function. And then you don't know what you're signing up for. There's not enough information. That's why it's a mystery school. But the thought process is that there's no such thing as coincidence. If you're drawn to it, then and you want to be a member of it, something outside of marketing is going to get you there. And so you're there for a purpose. You may not understand it here, but nobody just happens to want to be a Rosicrucian just off of the street. Something draws them there. And then, so that's like step one, proving you're worthy of understanding this more advanced mystical knowledge and how to do these things. But then when you get past like the top levels, in the same way with Freemasonry, it goes on from there. If you're worthy, if they feel like you're a good candidate for it, then they'll let you would never know that you weren't even selected. You feel like you made it to the top as like a master mason or whatever. And then you don't even know that there's other branches that branch off from there. It's really fascinating.
If you don't mind me asking, did you join the AMORC?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's the one that I was really interested in. That's the one where I was really learning a lot from.
Yeah, no, and there's more reasons for that, which we can get into offline. But yeah, and so it just happened. Like they understand how the universe works, how the soul works, how there's a mystical part of reality that's they've tried to hide it from us. And so, but because of where we're at in the timeline, and this being the end of a cycle, that's why this is a form of disclosure. This mysticism and all this coming to the surface is the same thing with UAP disclosure, same thing with the Epstein files. It's a part of the mechanism. Everything that's been kind of hidden is coming to the surface at once. The bad stuff's going to be wiped away. The stuff that's been hidden that we could have used to come closer to God, like mysticism, is going to become more commonplace and more understood. Because it's something that everyone has the ability to have access to. And if I am an example of anything, it is that you can do some incredible things that will make your life better and make you a better human, but bring more love into your life. It's the way it's supposed to be. It's the exact opposite of what you're seeing with the occult and with the Luciferianism stuff that you're seeing with the elites.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be quite a bit of, a lack of a better term, loosh harvesting.
Yeah.
And it is so crazy, and it's so obvious for anybody that is involved in at least understanding of the occult and all the esoteric stuff that's out there. Man, I recently just saw this crazy thing that it was it was Fox Now. So the news station Fox Now, and it was saying, like, for anybody, because the subconscious mind picks up on a lot of things that maybe our conscious mind doesn't pick up on, right? I mean, our mind has on average around 60,000 thoughts in a day, in which most people aren't even aware of, I don't know, a 40th of them at minimum, right? And one of the things that I saw is that somebody put like they were mirroring what the Fox Now news channel was putting up, to where it would read it in reverse, right? And your subconscious mind can pick up things in reverse that maybe your conscious mind doesn't. And it was saying like raw news now or something like that, or it's the war room or the raw room. That's what it was. And whenever you look at raw, it looks like war. Whenever you have now, it looks like won. And it just a bunch of weird, like almost like subconscious programming that is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I don't know how the fuck anybody is watching news anymore anyway. Right? Like, it's like, how much do you need to know that we've been propagandized for at minimum the last 80 years? Like at minimum.
Well, so rituals work for a reason. Spells work for a reason. Sigils work for a reason. But they can also be used to manipulate you, and you don't even know it. And so you get into subliminal messaging. You get, like, my favorite one is there's a Monster Energy can. There was a lady that was like at a trade show, and she was complaining about the symbolism on the Monster can, and she's got like that Karen haircut. And when I first saw that, I was like, look at this. Like, she doesn't have anything better to do. Like, she's so full of shit. But understanding what we know now, that is for sure real. And that is for sure trying to manipulate you. There's all that messaging. And so then when you get into, are you familiar with Carnelian law?
I've heard of it. I'm not
Okay,
too familiar with it.
so part of the way that you can, if you are in the occult, the way that you can bypass karmic blowback from some of the dark things that you do is you put it out in the open. That's Carnelian law. And the way that they've done it is almost like a loophole. But like if you were to watch Monsters Inc. now, that's a confession. And you start seeing, like growing up in the 90s, like I remember seeing on the news, like in The Lion King, that the leaves blew off and they said sex, and then like Little Mermaid's got dicks everywhere.
Yep.
And
The
like I didn't
rescuers
think
too.
anything of it. Yeah, and I was thinking, oh, okay, this isn't. But when you start understanding that Disney was a Mason and he was also in Bohemian Grove, and then all of this, like it just starts to, we just, it's going to get worse too. Like this is just the first dip of the toe in the deep end. Was just peripherally being shown that some of this is even possible. The next wave is going to be way worse.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's only the tip of the iceberg. And I tell you what, man, like it almost seems like even the conspiracy realms out there, people that are talking about conspiracies are almost too scared to even look into a lot of the symbolism and everything. They're just instantly, it's Luciferian, it's satanic. It's like,
Yeah.
man, if you really actually went into the details, you might be able to understand exactly how your mind is being manipulated. You know, there's levels to all of this stuff, and rather than just accepting it at surface level as just Luciferian, and I'm not going to look any more into it, it's like, you know, you're almost doing yourself a disservice because now you're not learning it. And if you're not learning it, then you're not going to be able to see it everywhere. Like in that movie with, what the fuck's his name? The wrestler. Oh God, I can't think of his name is now. Anyway, but yeah, it's crazy that a lot of people kind of just, you know, throw it off surface level kind of stuff. But I do want to ask you though, like while we're on this conversation, and you mentioned it a couple of times, like what are the rules of this reality? You said that you almost compiled a list, like a long list, but can you maybe rattle off a couple of those?
But it talks about, so it's going on. It always feels like I'm picking on Christians. I'm not. I'm just using that because I know it deeply. I remember throwing away all of my CDs that weren't Christian at one point, just trying to insulate myself from anything dark that could possibly happen, just trying to have a pure mind, as they would say. But one of the interesting things, so they gave us 100 universal laws, and it's all about balance. It's all about, so your soul is here to learn things. Your soul is supposed to have experience here that are probably bad, because that's the only way you can learn some lessons. There's some lessons that cannot be learned any other way. Loss, grief, like extreme anger, just despair. And it was mostly about that. It was about like don't stay all on one side. You need to be able to have that balance. It's extremely important. It's how you navigate it. And that's probably the primary one. I mean, there's stuff about interdimensional communication, there's stuff about interdimensional travel, all sorts of weird stuff in there. But the bulk of it is talking about those frequencies, like understanding. You talked fear earlier, like that, one of the lowest frequency feelings that you can have. You want to try and maintain a high frequency, like the Joe Dispenza stuff really works. And so when your body sends you signals that we just didn't really understand how to use, because there's no user guide when we show up here. And so the things that make you excited for a reason, but they're not always positive things that make you excited. What is that about? Those are still things you're supposed to explore as part of this journey that may even get you into a little bit of trouble. But you're supposed to be led by those feelings,
Right.
And then when you start doing things that make you excited, and you choose those over and over, if you have two options, choose the one that makes you excited. You continue to do that, it raises your internal frequency, and that you're emitting that frequency out into the universe, and the universe is going to respond. And so it'll put new people in your life, new opportunities in your life that matches that frequency, and the ones that don't, it'll just start falling away. And I've over the last year, as things have unfolded, like it's getting harder and harder to even go out in public because I'm wide awake. And so like being around people like at the mall, it's just draining. It just doesn't feel good anymore. It's because you're out of alignment.
Yeah.
And It's just the way it works.
Yeah, there's a strange thing that's going on. And maybe it's always gone on, but for me, it's like, man, I see how many people are just imprisoning themselves in this material reality. That
Mhm.
material things is the only thing that can make them feel a little bit better. Like, I need the new this, or I need the new that. I need to go with this clothing trend, or I need to, say certain catchphrases that everybody else is saying because it's like new slang. And if you're not saying it, you know what I mean? It's like weird things that are almost habitually keeping people here in this physical realm. And meanwhile, those same people will hear conversations like this and think that it's kooky. Like, how could you possibly even imagine that other people are talking to interdimensional extraterrestrials and whatnot? It's
Mhm.
like, it almost seems like you have to believe it to see it. And that's, almost counterintuitive to a lot of people, that
Oh, absolutely. So
we've all experienced what it was like to be duped by believing in Santa and the Easter Bunny and whatnot. And I think
yeah.
that for some reason people are very scarred from that. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. There's traumas. There's religious traumas. There's all sorts of there's societal trauma. So the way that our structure is built and our societies are built, you're supposed to fit in their box, right? And so, but that's not the way that we're designed. So we talked about earlier about fear being the lowest frequency that you can have. The highest frequency is love, but the one that's 1A would be authenticity. And so that is not something that you just know. It's something you have to explore to find. And so by doing the things that you enjoy, and making that your priority, not fitting in someone else's box, you start to realize the things that make you tick and the things that make you your authentic self. You start finding that. And when you can sit firmly in that, there's so much power and strength that is within that. And that gets into the lack of fear conversation we were talking about earlier. I don't give a single shit if you don't believe me. I know that I'm right. And I know it with certainty. It's just, I'm not gonna be defensive about it at all. Like and at some point in time, you're gonna have something happen where you're gonna realize that what I told you is right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that being able to walk down the street knowing that is a different walk than not.
Oh yeah, you're looking at it's like you at least visually that you're walking around in the same world that you always thought it was because it looks very similar. But the way that you interact with it is entirely different. And I was just thinking about this earlier today too that for at least for me on a personal level, I used to, look a lot into the Matrix and the simulation and people talking about that kind of stuff and is this a video game or whatever? And I think that it's probably a little bit harder. I was thinking about this earlier. It's probably a little bit harder if you've lived in the same house your entire life, right? Because it's always been the same and to look at it any different is almost unheard of. But for me, I'll give you an example. Me and my wife, we moved into this apartment a few months ago, and it is small, bro. Like, it is a one bedroom fucking shoebox that we live in. I mean, it's nice. Don't get me wrong. It's new. It's nice. Has a nice swimming pool. All the fun things, but it's tiny, and I almost feel like that it feels fake. Like in the strangest sense, because all I see is four white walls. Everything is the same color. Everything looks the same. Everything's brand new. And it's like nothing is wrong. It's like if you
Mm.
were launched into a video game, this is like a room that you would think would be a part of a video game. And for me, it's almost a little bit easier to detach from reality because I almost see these almost like fake four walls all the way around me, not to get too weird, but it's so strange. And it's so it for me it almost seems like it's easier to look at maybe higher levels of understanding and being able to see the reality in a higher sense. Does that make
Yeah.
any sense?
No, I can see that. And then, like, if you go back in time, like you start looking at some of these ancient, not ancient, but these buildings that were from the 1700s, right? These cathedrals that are older than that. There's so much thought went into the architecture and the acoustics and all this, and the color and the amount of ornate stuff that's in them. We've lost that. It's kind of gotten whitewashed, but I really do feel there's a concerted effort to create this environment for us that is trying to diminish us as humans to not be able to find this mystical part of our reality that we used to have access to, a whole lot more access to.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to ask you, do you believe that there are maybe interdimensional beings that are trying to keep us trapped in a lower frequency because maybe it suits them a little bit more to keep us down so that maybe they're easily like easier that we're easier to be puppeteered? Does it seem
Yeah,
like
there's
that?
some of that, and then you get into the like Hollywood and the occult influence there. Like that is the same thing. It's like you hear stories about them cutting a new trap album and then they take it into a ritual room and start applying stuff to it. And that stuff really works and stuff you would never know. But that stuff is all over. Like once you start realizing that that's possible, then you start seeing how it all connects to the other conspiracy theories that we thought were fake, that are all turning out true. It is, I mean, it's all a giant effort, which is what's really interesting. Get into the Baal and Moloch conversations, and when you start zooming out, you get the Luciferian, Baal, Moloch. That they all seem to be tying to the same thing, though, and so it's almost the same thing like we're doing for the lighter things. They found different keys to open the same door on the dark side too.
Right, right. And dude, I've been doing a little bit of research on Yahweh too, and a lot of people that maybe grew up
Uh,
Christian probably don't want to hear about this, but it
mm,
seems like Yahweh was in that same circle in Mesopotamian times whenever Yahweh was
mhm.
first discovered.
Yeah, so there's we understand a lot of the history stuff. There's we're picking on the Christians again, but there's going to be a lot of stories in the Old Testament that are attributed to Big G. But there's a lot of little G's, and like especially ones with the angry God stories is not source. That's not the monad. That is something else. It's just been attributed to G because they're monotheistic, and to think that Horus ever existed is sacrilegious. But Horus for sure really existed. You know,
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's man, it's
or
so
still
crazy.
exists.
Dude, you start
Yeah,
looking into a
there's
lot of this history. It's like no wonder a lot of it was covered up. You know,
well, yeah.
I was recently and I'm going to do a show here soon on Asherah, which is like a goddess back in that time, right? And Asherah had a connection with I believe it was with Yahweh, and she was almost like the feminine version of Yahweh as far as I understand. And it almost seems like she was completely wiped away from all the history books.
I'm not even familiar with her, and that's surprising. So, Ashera, Asherah,
Asherah.
Let's look into that.
Yeah, there's a big Pleiades connection with her as well. So don't forget to look down that rabbit
Mm,
hole on the positive side.
okay,
Yeah, dude.
cool.
Have you now you kind of were referring to the Old Testament there, and there was big G's and little G's and whatnot in there. But what is your take on the Elohim?
They are a class of being. Um, they are, yeah, they're their own little G's.
Little G's. I mean, and they could do they have a wide range of good and bad, or is it like high? Like, how are we supposed to
I
look at
have
Elohim?
I haven't seen bad, but I don't know. I've only experienced one.
Okay, I had an experience one time. I never even heard of the word, and was on a mushroom trip, and it was a whole channeling session, and it was crazy, dude. So it seemed positive to me. I just wanted to run it by you and see if you had any
Yeah,
experiences.
they're extremely advanced. If you get into the book of Enoch and understanding the hierarchy, um, yeah, they're way up there.
All right, that makes me feel good. Well, you kind of called me out there because I'm drinking a Monster right now, so I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to take a sip of that shit anymore.
And yeah, so think about this too. So Dr. Emoto a few years ago did a study on water crystals and being formed. You know what I'm talking about with
Hmm.
it's the same kind of situation. But your intent and what you do, like there's a reason to pray before your food is because of stuff like that. You can wipe that away. Same thing happens with food, like factory farming, cruelty, animal cruelty. Like if you've got a steak that was in a factory farm, the conditions are shit. The conditions are attaching to that being metaphysically, and you're absorbing that metaphysically to eat it. And so we've had to really reevaluate how we look at all of that. Like I thought praying before your food was just silly, but no, it really does matter.
Oh yeah, man, it definitely makes sense. Even I've done the experiment of like almost stating intention. I know a lot of people will meditate or pray over water and then stick it in the freezer and see what comes out and see if your intention or your prayer somehow
Yeah.
manifest into physical form. And dude, I pulled it out and it was the craziest thing. It was two M's that were stacked up on top of each other, bro. Meta
Yeah.
mystics. It was I was like, my mind was blown. And it was
Yeah, I saw one. They froze a dish of water over a photo of eyeglasses, and you could see in the crystals that form the eyeglasses. They're transfer like, and then you ever have shower thoughts? Is that a thing that a lot of people talk about
of
that? There's a
course.
reason for that. That water is like a Faraday cage, and so as you're submerged in water, or if you're in the shower, the reason that's happening is because it's helping reduce the metaphysical signal noise that's out there, and so your channel is clear.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. A lot of witches will say that if you have like any weaker spells or curses that are on you, that just by jumping in the shower, it almost, melts it away
Mhm.
a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild stuff, man.
Man, it's all energy,
All wild.
frequency, and fucking vibration. It always has been.
Yeah.
Um,
Everything is frequency and light.
My God. So, moving forward, I mean, I know that you know that there's definitely something coming. It's hard to tell exactly what it is or what the series of things will be, but like, what are your plans moving forward now that you've kind of developed a way to be able to interact with these different densities and the beings in the different densities? What's next for you?
We've got we've been teaching a class on how to do this recently. When we got back from Shasta, we got like a just complete guide on how to teach this. So we've got a group that we're teaching right now. We actually took them astral traveling as a group to the moon a couple of weeks ago, which was really cool.
Wow.
Um, would save a whole lot of money if we just do that instead of fire rockets off like we did today. But so we have places that we're supposed to be, things that we're supposed to do. I don't want to get into the specifics of that stuff yet, but there's things that are hidden that need to be revealed. And it's vaults and all sorts of weird stuff that's been buried. You're starting to see some of it with the scan pyramids and the halls of Amenti kind of things that looks like are underneath there. I don't know. Have you seen what's under Hawara?
The Egyptian pyramids?
Well, Hawara is a little bit further away.
A labyrinth.
Yeah, there's a labyrinth there, but you see that Omega symbol that's metallic underneath it?
Mm.
I
So
don't think so.
it's a giant Omega symbol and it's metallic, but it's a Stargate. It's one of the 12. So I think if I had to guess what's going to happen with what Chris Blitz was talking about is I feel like you're going to start seeing access underneath the pyramids, because even in the Rosicrucian initiations and in the Essene records, so they talk about Yeshua goes to India and Tibet, then he comes back to Egypt because the Essenes were a subdivision of the Great White Brotherhood, which is based in Giza. And so it says that they enter a pathway that you access between the paws of the Sphinx, goes into a tunnel and pops up in a hidden chamber. And so I was going through my fast when I was learning about all of this. And so I made a post about what I learned. And then 2 weeks later, the scan pyramid scans come out. And then there's that fifth chamber that's inside of there that nobody knew existed prior to that. And then I've been talking to, I've known that there was a second Sphinx for a while, for about a year, and we've been trying to find it. And then Filippo Biondi the other day makes the announcement the other day that they think they've located a second Sphinx just on the complete opposite side of the pyramids. And so what I think is going to happen, the new information that's going to be revealed is actually really ancient information from the cycle previous to this.
Whoa. All right. Yeah, there seems to be it seems to be kind of split on all that kind of stuff. Whenever you talk about the LiDAR and the different kind of being able to see what's underneath the ground with all the pyramids and all the chambers and everything, people will make an argument that, well, LiDAR and those kind of things can't really be trusted. But I don't know. I think that it kind of aligns with a lot of the mythology that there would be something extra that would be attached to a lot of this.
Yeah.
Like,
You
to
know
me,
who
that
can't
makes
be trusted? is Zarhi Hawass.
Oh, I know, dude. That guy. He's
So
absolutely a plant, right?
so he's a gatekeeper for sure. I just don't know for him. It could be the Bilderbergs, could be WF or Trilateral. The I think where this is headed, like they're not going to be able to deny it anymore. And so we talked about earlier about dealing with Thoth a lot. So are you familiar with the Emerald Tablets of Thoth?
Oh, of course.
Okay. So everything that we know completely aligns with what's on those tablets. And do you know the story of how they found those and how those are translated?
I know that. So the book that I read was written by the three initiates. It's supposed to be really close to what was on the Emerald Tablet or the Emerald Tablets.
Yeah. Do you know Maurice Storyal's story?
Oh, of course. Yes.
Okay. That's the kind of thing that is happening. This feels like a cross between John Dee without the occult, Maurice Storyal, and then kind of an Enoch situation that we're dealing with here. And so a lot of people that I interact with are getting information where things are buried and how to open chambers and why they're there and where they're from. You're starting to see inklings of stories from Romania, Bosnia, where they found ancient structures that might have been a sphinx, and they go down underneath it, that it directly aligns with the description of the pyramids from down in Antarctica. It starts to align with the stuff they talk about that they found in Grand Canyon that they've just completely blocked off. It really looks like these are going to be pre-flood, more on the Atlantean, that during that cycle. I think that what is all this is from, and then we're just going to start being able to discover it. They've been trying to hide it and find it for a long time, and so we're just at a point now where it's they can't stop it. There's too much happening.
There's way too much, man. Especially, dude, Hillary Clinton and all the Epstein stuff with her trying to find, what was it, Nebuchadnezzar or something like that?
She's trying to find Gilgamesh, which is Nimrod, which they did find, and they've moved it down to Antarctica. But there's reasons for that. That was a Nephilim, which is accurate. Like the Book of Enoch everyone needs to understand that story. You don't need to go read the book; just find a good summary of it. But that is all very legitimate. Like Metatron, all very real.
Oh yeah, man. And as far as just Metatron goes, my experience with that, it's not a whole lot, but it has been pretty damn profound. Just meditating on Metatron and Metatron's cube, it's like there's some unlocking that is going on right there, and to where I don't even know what to do with.
Well, part of what you'll get into what the ancient mystics will understand is sacred geometry, and when you get into Metatron, it's a ton of geometry, but and knowing how to use it, that's super important. And then when you start understanding the architecture of our reality down at the quantum level, it's gorgeous. Like the E8 lattice, if you don't know what that is, it's a very complicated geometric structure as a part of what our fabric of our reality is built in or on. And it's beautiful. Everything is just gorgeously articulated. Get into Robert Edward Grant and the stuff that he's doing. I'm trying to get in touch with them because we can complete we can answer a lot of the questions he's trying to figure out.
I've got a buddy who's friends with him. I might be able to link you.
Dude, that'd be awesome. I sent him some information the other day.
Have you seen Base Forge?
Yes. Oh, he's fantastic.
Yeah, he's a buddy of mine. We go to music festivals together.
Oh,
he went to Egypt with Robert Edward Grant a couple months back.
Let's go to music festivals and have a good time.
Yeah.
You're definitely my people. So
yeah,
we'll have to wait for sure.
How does Electric Forest sound? Let's go have some fun.
Yes, I would love that.
Let's do it.
Oh, dude, I love EDM festivals. They're so much fun.
Oh, especially Electric Forest.
It's all frequency and vibration. And like growing up, like I didn't like dance music or any of that. Like we got invited to a show and I didn't want to go. I used to work in the venue space, and I didn't want to go. My buddy was in town. He's like, "Hey man, you just I'm here. Just come over." I'm like, "Okay." And so we left an NBA game and went over there. We're not dressed like I didn't even know what to expect. Not dressed for that, but you could see the energy, and it reminded me of like I'm going back to my childhood, growing up as a Christian. Like when you right youth camp and you feel the Holy Spirit, like it's palpable, you can feel it. But I was feeling the same thing there, so it really started got my mind working. It's all energy manipulation. If everybody's in alignment and thought and body is there's no judgment, you can be your authentic self, so there's that mechanism that's included in that. And then if you've got an artist that's worth it, they know how to completely manipulate the energy and can just take you on a ride, and
and that's what Tyler's doing, and then some of the other DJs and stuff that he's working with, they're like incorporating all of this like geometric spiritual frequencies into the music, all incorporating it all at the same time, and it is like a whole nother fucking experience compared to any other music that's out there. It's crazy.
Ellis Dream does well, he does he's the side hustle light code, and it's all in there's light languages infused in it. It's the opposite of what you're seeing with Doja Cat, you know?
Yes,
you know what I mean? It's what
LS
it's what
Dream and Liquid Stranger are my top two. We're going to their festival this year.
We talk about being manipulated. We go back into the Rockefellers in the 20s and the Rockefeller Foundation shifting our tuning of our music from 432 to 440 and understanding cymatic patterns like Bass Forge does. You start to really understand like you're mostly water. It starts to make a lot more sense. And if we can get back to making music that is in alignment with what it should be, it's going to be so much more fulfilling. But if you're a big music fan and you do DMT, especially with complex sounds and like big sounds, I've got a whole playlist. It's like 8 hours of what I call it DMT textures. It's just you can differentiate frequencies and sounds so much better when you're on it. And so if you put the headphones in and just blast it, like it causes the sound to expand, and it's like Dolby Atmos in your head. And if it's really good, like I'll just find myself just like just in a groove. Like, oh, it is so much fun. The sound is just so gorgeous. Yeah. Actually, my favorite experience, or I guess my ballsiest experience, was I was at the Odessa finale at University of Colorado. 50,000 people, third row, hit the pin during the finale, and it was incredible.
Wow. Yeah, that had to be like transcending right there.
Like the whole stage went away and the visuals just became the field that we were in, and like it was incredible. So
yeah, it's so crazy how, whenever you're, I don't even want to say under the influence, because that almost implies like illicit drugs. And it's not, I hate whenever people like apply plant medicine to it being the same thing as heroin or something. I'm like, dude, not even close. We're talking about a totally different thing here. I had an experience one time with my cousin Sean. We were watching, I think it's called Walk Across the Universe. It's like a Beatles soundtrack movie. And dude, this woman started singing and the entire living room filled up with bubbles. It was the craziest thing, dude. I was That's like, awesome. Do y'all see this? Because I feel like I'm going around, I'm popping the bubbles. It was like the craziest thing.
Yeah. But like people will hear this and think this is kind of silly and that we're kind of losing it because we do psychedelics. But they go to a job where they're an accountant every day. Like they're missing out on one of the most incredible joys of life that we have been ever discovered. Like there is nothing that compares to it.
No.
If you put my top life events in a list, the first few hundred lines are going to be DMT experiences.
Yes.
And then it's going to get into normal stuff. Like there's nothing like it, and you can't abuse it. You can't get addicted to it. Like it is. Now I have recently, there's been because it's getting more popular, more people are doing it. And I actually made a video about this today. People are getting locked out.
Yeah. Somebody was just asking about that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it definitely can happen. So I got tagged in this guy's video that got some traction a lot, and people were sending it to me. He talks about, I don't know what I did. I didn't do anything. And then like 3 minutes later at the end, he's like, if you think I was trying to take something, I really wasn't. I just thought I'd bring it back to use it in this reality as for analysis. I'm like, well, there's your answer. Like, there is there's a way to do this the right way. Going in and exploring it and doing it for fun is fun. It is and it is incredible, but it's not the way it's supposed to be used. And if you do something wrong or you're a terrible person, they will not let you in. Like it will not happen. And they will let you know. And sometimes it's not kind.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've seen as well, man. It's crazy because a lot of people will use it as like a party thing, or it's just like a
Yeah.
fun, experience and not necessarily applying it. And it's like I think that it should be, for lack of a better term, it should be more ceremonial. You should be
Yeah.
taking it more
You should
serious.
respect it. You don't have to treat it as a ritual, or you don't have to do it in a shamanic kind of experience to where you've got, some random dude playing a drum over in the corner. Like it doesn't need that, but it does need respect. And so there's a mechanism in it. If you go through the breakthrough, go to a breakthrough. So there's different levels. What we talk about, and what we are trying to maintain, is what we call the working level. There's a breakthrough level that's above that, and the experiences are extreme, but they're more vivid. You kind of don't want it to end, and if you can continue to hit that pin and continue to have it continue, but at some point it's going to shut you down. And the way it does it's called a hyper slap, and it is jarring. It only lasts like 10 seconds, but it is going to shock your soul to the point to where next time you go in, you're not going to be able to not think about that. And like, I don't want to get to there,
Yeah.
because then there's one time.
Well,
Yeah,
humble you real quick.
yeah. So there was one time. I've been doing this for years, thousands of times, and so I'm used to it. And I was riding that train. The experience. It was like it was showing off, and so I'm just letting it go. And then all of a sudden it takes a turn and it starts going down a hallway. And I'm like, oh, wait, I know where this leads. I don't want this. And so I'm laying in bed and I jump up and I'm running to my shower. I'm going to try and shock myself out of it with cold water. And then the whole way there, the lights are going on and off. And then I'm in the shower and the shower's going hot, cold. And then it's shower off to completely taking the water. It physically wasn't doing that in the 3D reality, but my perception of it just completely didn't exist. And I sat like, and it spooks you it's like a boo jump scare. And like I stood there for probably 30 minutes afterward. And just like, huh, just like trying to grasp what the hell just happened. But that's the way it works. Like you physically cannot abuse it. It will not let you do it. But that's even possible, that it can block people. That just also is more evidence into the factor that it is not a psychedelic. This is not something that's just generated by your brain. This is external. Something external is blocking people from being able to access around. It doesn't matter how much they take. It does not matter. They will not be able to get access, and they are not in control. And for that to be the case, this is for fucking sure.
All right. I got a really far out there question for you. So it seems to me that a lot of people who may have been someone in a higher hierarchy, in other dimensions, maybe before they incarnated here, have incarnated here for this specific time. Now, with that being said, if that is the case, would you say that some of those people that have incarnated as humans for this specific time were also entities or beings that were guiding others through these types of experiences before they incarnated as humans?
As guides, like attached to them?
Yeah.
I would assume so, but I don't know for sure. I've never asked that question.
Okay. It was just a
I
weird
really,
thing.
I've had this question of like the mix. Usually it's 2 to 5 normally. And it could be an angel and then a ascended master and then an ancient being that you don't even know what to call it. But the rhyme or reason of why certain types get attached to certain people, I don't know the answer to, and I'm really curious about that. I need to figure that out.
Yeah, God, I just love learning about all this stuff. I fully believe it. Now, I think that it almost comes in waves, like it trickles in, and I think that that's probably done on purpose because I think too much at one time may be a little bit
Mm.
overwhelming to each individual out there. But I almost like to look at it like it's a story that's unfolding. You know?
Yeah, yeah. So let's use the Epstein files as an example. So 2016, when the Podesta emails came out, um, it was so crazy that there's no way that that's real. That's got to be a psyop, right? So you just the civilization is exposed to just a concept. It's outlandish, and then the first wave of the Epstein files come out, and then, so they're vanilla compared to what we have today. And then later on down the road, okay, here's some more, and here's now you're starting to see some of the dark stuff, but just the peripheral parts of it. And then the next one's going to be worse. But we've had the same thing with the way that we've been taught things too. Is that we'll get exposed to something and have no clue what is happening, why it's happening, no way to explain it, no guidance on what it's about, and then it's like little breadcrumbs. You just keep following the breadcrumbs, and then eventually something's going to happen where it'll snap and it'll just all connect together, and all of it will all make sense, and then you'll fully understand what they've been trying to show you, and then like how to use it or whatever it is. It's incremental, and it's by design. You're trying to keep from ontological shock. Um, it's so much information. It's so different than what we were told was real. Um, that
Yeah.
it's a lot for anybody.
Oh, dude, we bought into this material world and thinking that that's all there was, and it was almost like shielding all of this information from even happening by completely enveloping the normal everyday person into the material realm. What really trips me up is that we know that we're only here for a limited time. So why are we so focused on this material realm as if it is the only thing that exists and everything that is beyond it is silly?
Because they tell you don't exist after you die. That's why. It's because once you start understanding that reincarnation is real and then how all of that works, then you completely shifts how you navigate this life. It does, that's part of it goes back into the fear stuff that we talked about. That's why I don't fear. That's why if I lose somebody in my life, somebody passes away, the grief is no longer there either because
Happy
I know
for
what's going on. Yeah. I know what's going to happen after that happens. And so, yeah, dude, that's awesome. But I also know that your soul would have known how you're going to die before you ever signed up for this. So it's actually not a surprise to you. It's a surprise to you.
To the
But
ego.
Jonathan's not the one that moves on.
Right.
So, yeah, it's whatever your soul's name is.
Man.
And so when you start looking at, I'm telling you, there's just so much power, and then not in an egotistical, like authoritarian way, just more like that divine masculine power and being able to live your life like that.
Fully agree. Yeah, there's so much to learn, and God, I just love these kind of conversations. Thank you so much for coming tonight, dude. This has been
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. We'll have to do it again.
Absolutely, man. Well, look, every episode we do a tarot card reading towards the end of the show.
Okay.
And usually the tarot cards will align with the energy of the show. And tonight's no different because we got the 8 of Wands, which is very strange for this conversation. And I'll just read it out right here. I'm no tarot master, but I dabble. But the 8 of Wands, it says, incoming news sparks a series of events that will change your trajectory. You find yourself where you need to be and in the company of the right people. Flow with the current. The 8 of Wands card